Hi, my name is Julia Benz. I am a sustainability fellow at the Decentralized Future Council, and today I want to talk to you about blockchain's intersection with sustainability and how it's really giving power back to people in multiple different use cases. So throughout the presentation, when I talk about sustainability broadly, I really want you to think about it as any sort of resource that may need to become more sustainable. So in that realm, I'm thinking about, energy, water, food, and even like forests as a resource. So just keep that in mind. So what are challenges that projects that have to do with these resources might face? So one, keeping players accountable for any goals in a program, tracking these resources and addressing pain points as they are found, keeping multiple stakeholders in the loop, digitizing processes, and also keeping any privileged data secure. So you can see how these sustainable processes are inherently resource-based, right? All of these challenges have to do with keeping track of resources and sharing that information. So naturally, you can see how blockchain comes into play. Blockchain is immutable, transparent, and trustworthy, and it can help keep players accountable and in the loop, efficiently track resources, and it's really good at creating these community networks, right? It's really good at going from a centralized system to a decentralized system, and removing those middlemen in the process. So blockchain can really sort of democratize processes through this decentralization strategy. So in this way, blockchain itself is inherently community-based. So I want to go through a couple of case studies. The first is peer-to-peer energy trading. So the current problem is that electric utilities are facing grid issues. So there are a lot more distributed energy resources on the grid than there were a couple years ago. So what do I mean by that? I mean solar resources and EVs pushing and pulling energy into the grid where there weren't before. So this problem in particular is kind of fun to think about because it is almost exactly a centralized system. Like the old utility grid was very centralized, right? There's one power plant and energy is flowing in one direction. And now it's kind of becoming this decentralized active network of different resources needing to be able to push and pull more energy on and off the grid than before. So utilities are having to figure out how to deal with this while also keeping customer rates as low as possible. And of course, throughout all of these interactions on and off the grid, they need to be able to track this and keep customer information secure. So how does this relate to blockchain? Some blockchain vendors are actually working with utilities to help these prosumers or people with solar energy that actually create energy locally be able to trade with each other and other neighbors with their own preferences and grid constraints in mind. So for example, if I have a solar panel system on my house, I could trade with a neighbor and give them an even better rate during solar hours in the day than maybe even the utility could. So I can actually send that energy to them and they will be benefit by having a lower electricity cost, and I benefit by helping the community and potentially being rewarded for giving that energy out and helping the grid be less constrained in that area. And of course, tracking all of these transactions on a ledger is really useful so that the utility can see and it is accountable. So utilities often have to report back to higher ups and etc. But of course, keep that personal data secure as well. So second case study, there's a very interesting context here. So how do you track pollution in really population dense areas? So it's really difficult and expensive. You need a lot of different devices to track actual air quality, both indoors and outdoors. Particularly indoors, people don't have, or these researchers don't have access to inside people's homes, or even right outside their homes, right? So there needs to be a community-based solution here. So some companies have been using blockchain to actually create this network where people can buy air quality monitoring devices, and they're rewarded for sending this data back to the main vendor. So in this way, they've really been able to create a global network of indoor and outdoor pollution tracking devices, and people are then rewarded with cryptocurrency for participating. So those are only two use cases and examples that I could go through in this time today, but really, as I said before, any resource can do this. Blockchain is also being used in carbon accounting and renewable energy credit tracking, reforestation or deforestation prevention, and also supply chain management. So main takeaways for blockchain parties, really sustainability is a use case that should potentially be more looked at. It's really lines up with blockchain capabilities. And similarly, sustainability parties should consider blockchain as a tool that can ensure that accountability and help create these community-based research management processes and programs. And of course, removing middlemen and tracking progress of these programs as well. Lastly, I want to call out policymakers. It's really can be useful for policymakers to get involved, particularly in the energy industry, where it's highly regulated. So it's very useful for policymakers to be involved, understand blockchain and how this can be useful in sustainable practices, and encourage and support this intersection through funding and research. And also understand how community level engagement is, of course, powerful for sustainability projects. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions at all. I'd be happy to connect and chat more. Thank you.